Greetings to all the members of the Jewel Heart Rosary of Dharma Centers and also all friends, as well as those of you who are occasional participants in the Jewel Heart meditation programs. I've been asked to say a few words about meditation and mantra to use during this present situation sweeping around the planet, and how we can best protect ourselves in a spiritual side of things. I think there's no lack out there of advice in terms of medical precautions and general sanitary precautions and washing your hands numerous times and being careful at distancing, social distancing, I think is being called. And these are all very important. In any times of danger, we should follow various levels of advice that are being given. I think it is important as Buddhist practitioners or as enlightenment-oriented people to have some basic understanding that our life force, our body-mind complex, does have its own immunity system and resistance system, own ability to ward off various diseases and also to destroy those diseases when they intrude our premises, when they enter our body. And so I think many of the medical pieces of advice and sort of social distancing pieces of advice are given as mainly have the benefit of keeping the intruder out of the temple, which is our body. From the spiritual side, we can also enhance our ability to resist those kind of medical factors or health factors or life factors by intensifying our own mental and spiritual presence, and in that way maximizing the natural defensive force of our human energy shield. And when Gyalwa Rinpoche, Je Tamshe Khampa, the Dalai Lama, was asked for advice, he did recommend a general practice of Tara, the Tara mantra, Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Soha, and sending out from the center of one's heart a field of green radiance. Green in Buddhism is universal, in Tantric Buddhism is the color of universal energy. It's kind of a Buddha karma, you could say, Buddha energy or enlightenment energy. It's our natural, primordial enlightenment force. And I think Dalai Lama mentioned that one because all Central Asians know and do that practice. It's even more widespread than, say, Medicine Buddha. The main purpose of the Medicine Buddha Tantra, as taught by the Buddha, is to teach us how to maximize our own natural healing forces or healing powers. There aren't a lot of sadhanas, in other words, trubtab or daily self-generation or dakye practices that I've encountered in my life focused on Medicine Buddha. The ones I use are all in the initiation rituals. In other words, when a Lama gives a ritual, first he generates himself as Medicine Buddha and does various mantras. The sadhanas that I've seen, I found them in those that type of literature. But otherwise, generally, I received a Medicine Buddha transmission in 1972, so it's quite a few years. Something like almost 50 years that I've been doing that practice in a general way based on oral transmission. So first I'd like to just say something about the oral transmission way of practice, of using Medicine Buddha for healing and well-being. And then I'll say something upon the two main actual sadhanas I've seen as embedded in the self-initiation text, or it's called Jenong in Tibetan, the Jenong Pecha, when a Lama gives the initiation, the general transmission texts. And in the oral transmission way of practice, and it's often given in a very simple way without a lot of chanting or liturgy. Some sadhanas are very long. People who practice Yamataka, Chakrasamvara, Vajrayogini, the written text which one chants, the liturgy, if you will, the dakya, the generating oneself as that mandala deity, can be anywhere from 10 to 100 pages long. Most of them are more like 40 or 50 pages. And so one chants that whole set of texts, and it's mostly, in those texts, it's mostly giving a visualization, describing a visualization. Here, rather than have a text in which one follows a prescribed visualization, in the oral transmission way of practice, one does a more simple visualization. Buddhists start every practice with a refuge bodhicitta, Sangye Chodan Soki Shonam La, Shanjo Bharatani Kevsuchi, Dagi Jinso Jipa Sonam Gi, Drola Pincher Sangye Drupar Sho. They especially love that verse because it was written by Atisha when he came to Tibet in 1042, written just after he came to Tibet. And so it's all the schools know that, every Lama and most Central Asian people from Bhutan and Ladakh and the South Himalayas to all of Tibet, Western China, and the Mongol regions to Eastern Russia will know that verse. And they'll also do the verse of Samchen Tamche, may all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness, be free from suffering, the cause of suffering. And rest in joy, which doesn't fall into suffering, and rest in equanimity, which is equal love or equal respect for both likable people and unlikable people. Usually followed by the mantra Om Sobo Washodo Sarva Dhamma Sobo Washodo Hum. One dissolves the world into light and one's body into light. And all goes down into the heart, and going into the heart, into a little fire at the heart. Sometimes we do it into a syllable hung at the heart, or if we're doing other kind of practices, another letter can be used, but here for Medicine Buddha we just use a hung. And the hung, it's sort of like looks a little bit like an English letter 5, but we don't have to use an actual letter. We can just use a little blue flame at the center of the heart. And then we think this is my primordial continuum, the flowing river of my life, the river flowing at the very center of my being, which carries my sense of me from moment to moment, day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, lifetime to lifetime. In other words, you could call it the deepest radiance or the most stable radiance at the very core of my continuum, my santana, or my soul. And when you let all things like that dissolve, you let all sense of regret go, and all sense of unhappiness, all sense of suffering, all sense of conditioned being. You could say it's a little bit like going for a holiday picnic on enlightenment land, Enlightenmentistan, and just resting the mind in that sphere of infinite goodness. And the first Dalai Lama in one of his texts says, emptiness is the best protector, talking about how to protect oneself from various ills in the world, from accidents and attacks of wild animals and bandits, and getting caught in a house on fire and getting squished by an earthquake. The best protection for that is to relax into the infinity of one's being for a few moments every day. In the Tibetan world, in Buddhist world, we like to do that 4 times a day. Every Buddhist practice, sadhana, especially tantric practice, begins with that. And here, Medicine Buddha is a Kriya Tantra practice. So we rest into the infinity of our being and the primordial timeless nature of the soul. I like to use that word soul because early Buddhist texts are translated by Christians, and they translate anatma, non-self, as no soul. And when I met Dalai Lama in the early 70s, he was quite accessible in terms of, he would often use the expression soul, all these living beings, all these souls, I think as a direct kind of resistance to the translating anatma as no soul, and beings have no soul. It's just what is our soul is the question, and not whether or not there is one. Soul is just describing our sense of self, isn't it? And what flows from one moment to the next and one lifetime to the next. And the definition in Christianity is different than the definition in Buddhism, what it is and what it is not. But the word still works very well for our sense of self and our sense of being an identifiable entity in this vast universe. So we relax into the infinity of our being and just let everything go. And try to feel this blue flame hair represents the primordial spaciousness of our being. And blue in Tantric Buddhism is related to space and the sky. So earth, water, fire, air, and space. So it's the infinite spaciousness of our being. And just like clouds come into the sky and then dissolve without a trace, in that way, when with a good heart, based when we start with those two verses of refuge and bodhicitta, in other words, infinite, developing strong compassion for all living beings and a determination to achieve enlightenment as a way to benefit all of them, that gives us a good heart. So going into emptiness with that good-heartedness, we reinforce that good-heartedness, which the next 4 lines, may all beings be happy, be free from suffering, be in joy, free from suffering, and learn to live with equanimity towards people who praise them and people who scold them and people who are nice to them and people who are not so nice to them. From one side, learning to be have equality. In Buddhism, that is for us, having those qualities means we are a good-hearted person. If we don't have that, we're not so good-hearted. So going into this emptiness or infinity state on the basis of good-heartedness, you could say, on the basis of the good heart. And we sit in that space with a sense of love, compassion, radiance, and just let all negativity go. Now, in the Buddhist way of thinking, our own negativity or positivity can attract or repel various kind of elements. Good-heartedness attracts good-hearted people, and negative-heartedness attracts negative-hearted people, that sort of thing. But it goes beyond that to everything. Like a sense of success attracts success into our life, and a sense of defeat attracts defeat into our life. If a boxer goes into the ring thinking, I can't possibly win, the chances are great that he will not win are greatly improved. And if we go in thinking, I can win, the chances are improved. So in this way, going into emptiness with that good-heartedness and the sense that this is my immortality, if you will. Not immortality in kind of a general sort of Greco-Roman sense of the word, but just simply this is my most stable, forceful, strong element. We say equal to the Buddha. This is my Buddha, quality of my mind and body, equivalent to the mind and body of a Buddha, sort of in synchronicity with. And we rest in that blue radiance and just have the sense of the radiance flowing completely through ourselves, and which at this point is formless and filling the whole universe, and just bringing joy, health, well-being, prosperity, success. And in that way, developing a strong inner environment. And this is a Kriya Yoga Tantra, so when we practice Kriya Yoga, we can go through what they call the 6 levels of sacredness. We can come out of this The deepest level of sacredness is the radiance at the very center of the core of your soul, the joy and radiance right at the core of your being. This is your deepest sacredness. And then we can come out of that in various ways, and eventually coming out as the Buddha form of that tantric practice. In this case, medicine Buddha. So if we had empowerment, we'd do that. We can either do it in all 6 stages, going just the infinity of being, and then a simple sound of our bodhisattva urge, or our universal love, compassion urge, which in this case is hung. Our aspiration to spread our goodness in all directions, our natural goodness in all directions. Hung, and this transforms and transforms and transforms into the 6. We can easily do like that, but many texts, the simpler texts will just say, go straight from the emptiness, instantly becoming medicine Buddha. Having yourself sitting, feeling of yourself as a blue medicine Buddha. Blue color because of space, and of course space is what supports all elements. Now, our own body naturally is made of the four elements, isn't it? There's solid aspects of the body, or the earth element, and there's fluid or liquid aspects of the body, and therefore water, and then there's the warmth aspect of our body, the temperate aspect, and the metabolism of our body, and then the flowing aspect of our body, the air element, you could say. All of this is supported by our sense of spaciousness, these 4, earth, water, fire, air. And when the spaciousness is in perfect balance, the 4 elements are in perfect balance. And so at the center of our heart, we see a moon disk, and on its syllable hung, or we can just put a little blue flame. And the mantra Om Bekanze Bekanze Ma Bekanze Ranza Samogati Soha. Om Bekanze Bekanze Ma Bekanze Ranza Samogati Soha. Om Bekanze Bekanze Ma Bekanze Ranza Samogati Soha. If you can find a video of Kimchi Gyalek Doji Chung giving that empowerment, perhaps, that would be nice, and him doing the mantra transmission. But otherwise, yes, my voice is wonderful. Om Bekanze Bekanze Ma Bekanze Ranza Samogati Soha. Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Ranza Samogati Soha. Om Bekanze Bekanze Maha Bekanze Ranza Samogati Soha. And then we think of our life and our health and our well-being and our position in the world as one who has taken the bodhisattva vow. That is to say, one who has taken the vow to benefit all living beings, near and far, likable and not so likable, and puts the mind on that Om Bekanze Bekanze Ma Bekanze Ranza Samogati Soha with the hung at the center. And from it sends out waves of light, and the light go out and fill our body, and then go out through our pores and fill the whole universe. So a very general practice of doing is like that. And in the oral trend, then we just recite the mantra, Om Bekanze Bekanze Ma Bekanze Ranza Samogati So Bekanze Bekanze Ma Bekanze Ranza Samogati Om Bekanze Bekanze Ma Bekanze Ranza Samogati Soha. And just have the sense that this healing energy, this universal healing power, the natural power of my body-mind complex to heal all forces, all negative forces, all causes of disease and so forth, that this just flows and makes my body and mind system very alive and very fresh. So no matter what comes, we have the ability to digest it. And the difference of the digestive power of species is something which is important to notice here. For instance, vultures eat dead carrion, dead and rotting carrion. If we were to eat that, we would have a problem. But because of the carrion's, the vulture's ability to digest, it has no problem with that. Dogs in Asia often go around eating the human feces that are deposited on riversides or outside of villages by locals who do not have flush toilets. And the dogs have no negative side effect from it. They have the ability to digest. The problem isn't the material. The problem is our immunity system, in terms of food, digestive system, in terms of viruses and bacteria, the ability of our body to accommodate to that situation and to resist and overcome them. You could say digest them or just fight them off or whatever we want to call. So the simplest way of doing like that is like that. Otherwise, if we don't have empowerment, sometimes we just see ourselves in our normal form, and in front of ourselves we'll visualize Medicine Buddha surrounded by the 7 other Medicine Buddhas, you could say, I guess, the healing Buddhas. And then the sky is above filled with all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And sometimes then we'll put all male beings looking like our father sitting to our right and behind right, and all females looking like our mom sitting to left and behind left. And we look at the Medicine Buddhas in front. We can send out lights, and they fill the whole universe, past, present, and future, of 10 directions, and call back all the healing forces that have ever existed, do exist now, or will ever exist. And it comes into our visualized or imaginary friends floating in the sky in front. And this is a way of reinforcing or invigorating or refreshing our own immunity system, you could say, by means of getting in direct touch with universal healing power. The universe heals itself. You know, if you go to a forest fire, burns down a forest, and slowly the forest comes back, and a sea gets poisoned or polluted by something, and slowly the life comes back to it. You know, we drop a nuclear bomb in a city, and 50 years later or 40 years later, that city is up and thriving. The life itself has its own self-healing force. So this is, we could say, Medicine Buddha, rather than representing one's own natural healing force, is representing the healing force of the universe. And sort of, it's like having a Prius hybrid and driving into a charge station and plugging your battery into the external, you could say, electricity, and drawing that into one's body and into one's battery, and then that totally reinvigorates the battery. So here we see that Buddha in front, and from his heart lights go out and bring back endless healing powers. And the Buddha in that way, Zahum Bam Ho, becomes completely infused with universal healing powers. And then as we do the mantra, we imagine that the white lights come from that Buddha's, the center of his skull, from the Om at the center of his skull, and come to our body and fill us with white light and heal all diseases of body, physical diseases, and also caused by physical circumstances, and completely reinvigorate our ability of self-healing. And then red lights come from the Buddha's throat chakra and fill us, and enter our throat chakra, completely fill us. And all negative energies and whatnot caused by sort of negative emotions and negative thoughts are completely healed. And then blue lights come from the Medicine Buddha's heart and fill our heart and completely heal us of all kind of deep spiritual causes. Maybe we could say karmic causes of illness, disaster, and so forth. And then all three together, because body, speech, mind, body, emotion, and spirit are always interconnected. They appear as different when we think body, we think emotion, thought, words. When we think mind, we get a different kind of sense of them, but they're all completely interconnected. So we do all three at once. And then at the end, we just, when we do the mantra, say 21 times, Om becomes a Ma, becomes a Ranza Samugati Soha. There's also a longer sadhana or dharana you can do if you wish. And then at the end, those Medicine Buddhas all melt into all that whole field of visualized beings dissolve into the Medicine Buddha visualized. He comes to the crown of one's head, becomes the size of a thumb, and sits on the crown of your head for a few moments, and then descends into your body via your crown chakra, coming to the Om in your crown chakra, and then the ah in your throat chakra, and then the hung at your heart chakra, then dissolves into light. And then just feel the healing energy just spread through your whole body. And if you suffer from a bit of germ phobia and paranoia about such diseases, then you let the energy seep out through your pores and form a force field around you of blue lapis lazuli radiance, sort of like Batman's outfit or Superman's skinny outfit, ballet tight outfit. What was that, Mel Brooks? Men in tights, Supermen in tights. But all over from the top of your head to the tip of your crown, and having the sense of being completely healed, completely strong, completely impregnable by the forces of illness. Of course, having done this, you shouldn't think, well, now I don't need to wash my hands or take any other precautions. This is done in order to maximize your own self-healing. For instance, I've watched about, 10 or 20 interviews with people who had the coronavirus 19. Those ones all basically had a 2 or 3 hour discomfort from it. They had it wasn't like a terrible flu or a difficult, super suffering flu. And so one shouldn't think I should not take care not to contract that, because even if you contact it, even if you do not suffer a lot from it, you become a potential carrier. I think the biggest danger are to people 75 years old and up. So we don't want to be a transporter of that virus to other hosts. But by means of our own meditation practice, we can supplement other approaches to warding off that illness. At the end of the practice, when you feel completely reinvigorated, like you just had a wonderful sleep after a rum toddy, and you had an 8-hour sleep and you wake up completely refreshed and you get up and go about your business, but do so feeling very positive, very strong, but taking the natural precautions, and as in Buddhism we say, seeing all other living beings as friends and loved ones, and as seeing yourself as a child born from all of those others in some previous life, all of them as your mother and father. Well, of course, with every illness, there are casualties. With the flu in North America every year, we have 30 to 40,000 people die, and from car accidents, roughly the same, and gunshot accidents, and people tripping over their pets, a few thousand, and so on. There will be casualties, because that's the nature of human life. But if we, from our side, take the maximum precaution, we can be maximally self-protective, and then we can become part of the solution rather than part of the problem. So thank you very much. Om Bekanze Bekanze, Maha Bekanze, Ranza, Samu Gati, Swaha.